wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Kent, a spiritual home that welcomes all people of goodwill. Wherever you are this morning, we welcome you. May our time together be filled with joy, belonging, hope, and with the promise of who we can be together. I'm Reverend Christy Anderson, today's worship leader and a member of this congregation. Our worship associate is Heidi Schaefer-Bish. We're joined by our RE director, Colleen Taylor, and our music director, Hal Walker. In expressing my gratitude to these individuals, I also want to thank today's tech team, Jennifer May and Ginny Horvath, who behind the scenes work efficiently to ensure our seamless virtual worship today. Welcome to everyone who has just joined us. We give thanks for this time together.
This is my calling out. I want to break through to you. Your heart's the hardest kind of stone for breaking through. No time for turning back. Hop on this changing track. Come around with all your friends. Revolution's around the bend. Circle of friends and family. Put aside their own agenda where the future of the world begins. What a time for opening windows. A candle lights, a voice is heard. Something sparks and the world turns. One time failing doesn't mean it's time to give up on a dream. 10 times failing doesn't say it's time to turn toward corporate ways. Many failures doesn't make true. That's your neighbors trying to fake you. Can't you hear my call? Are you too scared to walk? You say the vision's much too tall. Well, I'll tell you, this ain't just talk. You locked up all my doors. You say it's been tried before. This time I'm gonna prove you wrong. Show the truth behind this song. Circle of friends and family. Put aside their own agenda where the future of the world begins. What a time for opening windows, candle lights, voices heard. Something sparks and the world turns. Break down once again, up around and try again. You fail once and you fail again. Time to try one time again. You fall down, around again. Get up now and try again. As the world burns, I wonder when another one's gonna come again. Circle of friends and family. Put aside their own agenda where the future of the world begins. What a time for opening windows, candle lights, a voice is heard. Something sparks and the world turns.
Something sparks and the world turns. That was beautiful, Hal. These words are more prophetic now than when they were published in the UU World magazine's Winter 2017 edition. Quote, Unitarian Universalism's public focus has shifted notably in the last 3 years as UUs have engaged the movement for Black lives, the new sanctuary movement, and most recently, the resistance movement that is challenging the policies and politics of the Trump administration. While it's true that UUs have been active in justice movements for decades, it seems to us that UU leaders and many congregations have embraced justice work as central to our movement in ways not seen in a long time, and in ways that some UUs are experiencing as unsettling or disruptive. Some UUs are responding to this new focus with excitement, some with relief that we are finally living out what they see as our calling. Others are expressing caution, frustration, or alarm. Come, let us explore, contemplate, and worship together.
We join Unitarian Universalists across the country in lighting a chalice. As I light my chalice, I invite you to light your chalice at home. Our chalices are a sign of the light of truth, the glow of love, and in declaring our commitment to this love, I invite you to join me in reading aloud the words of the covenant of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning to the young and the young at heart. Our story this morning is The Rabbit Listened by Corey Dorfeld. Let's begin. One day, Taylor decided to build something. Something new, something special, something amazing. Taylor was so proud. But then, out of nowhere, things came crashing down. The chicken was the first to notice. Cluck, cluck, cluck. What a shame. I'm so sorry that this happened. Let's talk about it right now. Cluck, 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 cluck. But Taylor did not want to talk, so the chicken left. Next came the bear. Gar, roar, how horrible. I bet you feel so angry. Let's shout about it. Gar, roar, ah. But Taylor didn't feel like shouting, so the bear left. The elephant knew just what to do. Trump-da! I can fix this. We just need to remember exactly the way things were. But Taylor didn't feel like remembering, so the elephant left. One by one they came. The hyena, let's just laugh about it. The ostrich, well, let's hide and pretend nothing happened. The kangaroo, tisk, tisk, what a mess. Let's throw all of this away. And the snake, shh, let's go knock down someone else's. But Taylor didn't feel like doing anything with anybody, so eventually they all left. Until Taylor was alone. In the quiet, Taylor didn't even notice the rabbit, but it moved closer and closer until Taylor could feel its warm body. Together they sat in silence until Taylor said, "Please stay with me." And the rabbit listened. The rabbit listened as Taylor talked. The rabbit listened as Taylor shouted. The rabbit listened as Taylor remembered and laughed. The rabbit listened to Taylor's plans to hide, to throw everything away, to ruin things for someone else. And through it all, the rabbit never left. And when the time was right, the rabbit listened to Taylor's plan to build again. "I can't wait," Taylor said. "It's going to be amazing." Have you ever felt like Taylor? I know I have. Did you notice something about the characters in this story? They spent their time trying to help Taylor feel better by offering the ways that would make them feel better, the ways that they cope with frustration and anger and grief. Each of them offering up a different way. And when it wasn't accepted, they left. There are times, at one point in time, I think that we have all felt all of those things, all of those reactions when things are hard. There are times that I've wanted to yell about it, times that I've wanted to talk it out or fix it right away, or other times when I just wanted to run away and hide too, so the bad feelings would go away. Have you? Well, the rabbit does something pretty special in this story. Instead of telling Taylor what to do, the rabbit simply listens and is present. Instead of telling Taylor what to do, the rabbit simply stays and is present. And it's through this act of stillness and friendship that space opened up for Taylor to go through her emotions and decide what to do. Sometimes we just need time, and sometimes we just need someone to listen and to stay. I wonder, who are the rabbits in your life? And I wonder, who are you the rabbit for in someone else's?
Thank you, Colleen. Each week, we take time to embrace our church family and bring to mind the others in our lives for whom we care. Let us join together now in celebration of our joys and in solemn recognition of our sorrows and losses. I ask for your indulgence today as I make one slight change to our ritual. I want to begin by inviting you to share just your sorrows, losses, and concerns for this first time. You'll have time to share your joys shortly. Please use the chat box to share with one another the heaviness that weighs upon your heart. Kara is recognizing and honoring her Uncle Mike. Cheryl Spoor has been very ill and is having a difficult time. Cheryl, we hold you in our hearts. Heidi Emhoff is sad for a friend who just lost her sister in a tragic accident and worry for another friend whose husband is in the hospital with COVID. May they find strength. And from Jenny, my friend Judy lost her husband to cancer this week. Blessings to the family. From Kara, her Uncle Mike has pneumonia and a heart issue. We wish him healing and also healing for Marianne Casper's broken wrist. Let us know if you need help, Marianne. Laura Davis expresses concern for her friend Claire in the hospital. Nancy Vanderstein, the sorrow of losing her former brother-in-law, Tony, this past week. We hold you in our hearts, Nancy, and Tony's family. Misses her uncle who passed away Friday night. Judy, we hold you and your family in our heart. May your memories bring you comfort. From Jules, sadness for a friend who is in complete rejection of a double lung transplant. Kevin has been dealing with some serious rib pain, and his mother is recovering from serious food poisoning. Kevin, may you feel pain-free and your mother on the road to recovery. From Vivian, for Lori Merkin McGee, who lost her uncle this week. We hold you in our hearts, Lori. For those whose names were shared, and for the names of others we hold silently in our hearts, let us join in a time of prayer. Spirit of life and love, we awake to the complexities of living every day, an ongoing journey of contradictions, loss and discovery, confusion and understanding, pain and healing. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and temptation to escape. Let us join together in spirit right here, right now, to fortify our strength. May we find strength in knowing that we are not alone. We travel as companions in a mutual bond of giving and receiving. May we find strength in gratitude for our many blessings, frequently gifts bestowed by grace. May we find strength in the goodness in the world, human acts, small and large, of kindness, forgiveness, rescue, reconciliation. With renewed strength, may we extend the powerful healing force of love to ourselves and to those who sorrow. May we be comforted in remembering that we are part of a larger web of sentient creations, earthly beauty, the embodiment of the miracle of existence itself. Amen. Now I invite you to place your joys in the chat box. Jill Forsman, Bruce is having a milestone birthday this Tuesday. Happy birthday. My joy is that my friends from this church are going out of their way to help get to doctors in the hospital that I need. So thank you for your help in assisting Cheryl. Ellen says a small business I work for got the second round of PPP loans and I get to go back full time to music therapy. We're very happy for you, Ellen. Kevin is happy to report that he will be getting surgery on April 12th. Oh, that is wonderful news. We wish you speedy recovery. From Danny, I'm grateful for the skilled physical therapists who are helping me through a setback in recovery after my hip surgery. Danny, we wish you speedy and comfortable healing. Thank you. Jennifer May is inspired by the 1,100 plus UUs who attended yesterday's New Day Rising conference. It was very inspiring. Ginny shares that we participated in the clinical trials for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, so Brooke and I are happy it is now approved. Thank you for sharing yourselves for the sake of all of us. We give thanks for these abundant blessings and for this time together. In gratitude, we say, Amen.
The call to worship I read earlier was the introduction to an article with comments from 6 UU ministers and lay members who responded to an article titled, "Do You Have to Be an Activist to Be a Unitarian Universalist?" The following is a portion of the response offered by Takaya Amin, a member of the Church of the Larger Fellowship. Quote, "If you embrace and believe in our principles, you can't sit idly by in the absence of those ideals in our society. We are supposed to uphold, as a matter of principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. How does anyone propose we get there if we don't take action to make it happen?" I am frankly tired of hearing fellow UUs saying, "I am not an activist," or "I didn't come to this faith to be an activist. This faith requires something of us in return for being our ideological home, and that requires that we get up, get out, and build the world we dream about. If you aren't called to act in, on, and through our principles, maybe you shouldn't call yourself a Unitarian Universalist." The second reading is from a book titled After the Good News by UU minister Nancy MacDonald Ladd. Quote, "Never forget. A teacher of mine once said that every Sunday morning, someone in that congregation has just suffered the broken heart that they will spend a lifetime trying to mend. Never forget that someone in that congregation is here for the first time, wondering if this will yet be another place where they won't be noticed, won't be seen, won't be cared for. And somewhere in that congregation, there is someone grappling with a choice that will remake their life. Attending to the real pain present in our communities is nothing short of sacred work, and ignoring it or glancing away can be a form of erasure." Both of these sentiments appeared years prior to the pandemic and divisive presidential election. Today, there's probably an even greater yearning by some UUs to experience worship as a renewal, a quiet time to get away from the pain of reality. On the other hand, others in our pews are motivated now more than ever to work for social change. They seek worships that call us to action and language that highlights the realities of suffering by oppressed and degradation upon the environment. These individuals are expecting worship to be a rallying call to action.
Last summer, a decision was made that our church's popular fundraising auction event would not be held in person and instead would somehow be virtual. Right away, a member of the auction team posted an enthusiastic comment on Facebook soliciting creative ideas for the auction. Some responded on Facebook that they couldn't begin to think about generating new ideas because they were struggling to accept the news that the auction wouldn't be held in person. An interesting conversation followed that acknowledged that individuals were coping with grief differently. For some, grief required stepping back from reality for contemplation and self-care. For others, grieving the loss of the in-person event meant connecting with people and brainstorming possibilities for the new reality. Obviously, we have different ways of coping and adjusting to loss. As Reverend Ladd reminds us in her reading, Some people come to the church burdened by great pain and loss, in need of an hour of respite from reality. They seek connection and perhaps a word of hope. Reverend Ladd believes that not only should people have the opportunity to experience pain and lament in church, but this emotion should be encouraged through ritual. She notes that church may be the only place where one can feel pain and openly weep. Inner work is necessary. Wrestling with pain moves us toward wholeness. I'm sure you've heard Unitarian Universalist ministers preach about the virtue of wholeness. We think to ourselves, sure, I want to be whole. But have you ever stopped to think about what does it really mean to be whole? I understand personal wholeness as the ability and the willingness to feel the entire breadth of human emotions, including loss, grief, sorrow, and pain. I'd like to share an example of what is not moving toward wholeness. When I was growing up, my mother never allowed my sister and me to have a pet. She explained, "It will die, and then you'll be very sad." She wanted to protect us from pain, and yet her good intentions interfered with the ability to live life to the fullest, hindering our wholeness. As we all know, being open to reality, like owning a pet, requires a trade-off. We will have to embrace the pain as well as the joy. To those of you who are hurting right now, we validate your feelings of pain. You have accepted the vulnerability that comes from loving for the sake of living fully. We wish you insights so that you may grow in wisdom from your experience. We wish you strength so that you may engage fully in life when and as you are able. During the past year, we have all had more opportunities than usual to experience pain. Pain of our own and that of others. Like many of you, I felt overwhelming despair when I realized by late summer that the pandemic was going to continue much longer than imagined. This meme summarizes my attitude at that time. Unlike the cold medication NyQuil, which promises to provide a good night's sleep, YearQuil offered the tranquility of non-awareness through the year 2020. This really resonated with me. I missed so much, babysitting my grandkids, social gatherings, playing music with others. Further depleting my spirit was the hate-filled political campaign rhetoric. When Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd were brutally killed at the hands of white people, I was utterly despondent. I just wanted to bury my head in the sand. I received a phone call the day after George Floyd's murder. It was a longtime friend of mine, an African American named Frank. He always greets everyone with words of exuberance. So I was quite taken aback when I asked how he was, and he somberly responded, "I'm really hurting." He briefly shared his fears for his grandson and other Black boys and girls, men and women. He continued, "We need to do something." The "we" meant KIFA, the Kent Interfaith Alliance for Racial Reconciliation and Justice. Of course we need to do something. And I'm the one who should be initiating it as co-leader of the group. I was so wrapped up in my own feelings that I hadn't considered the deeper pain felt by African Americans. The thought had not even entered my mind that Kifa needed to immediately make a public statement or show a visible public presence of solidarity. I was so self-absorbed by my own pain and emotionally numbed by acts and words of hatred that I had completely shut down. As a retired middle-class woman who's not part of a marginalized group, I had the privilege of shutting out the world around me, and I had fully taken advantage of that privilege. What had happened to me? That phone conversation was a wake-up call that turned around my pandemic-induced isolationist life. The conversation opened my heart, which meant I had to face reality and allow my heart to feel pain as it broke open. Yet this breaking open of one's heart creates space for deeper love to grow. And this love, born from pain, creates empathy, which makes us more caring, compassionate people. On the journey to wholeness, inner work needs engagement with outer work. As Unitarian Universalists, we value the interconnected web of existence. Our faith, by placing us within all that is sacred, invokes a moral responsibility to engage with life and contribute our part to the collective good. Often this involves putting ourselves in situations of conflict by challenging the status quo and those invested in it. The work of social action is emotionally exhausting, requiring rest and renewal. Without this, it's easy to become cynical and work from a motivation of anger. An important role of the church is to support social action efforts by offering spiritual resources that call us back to our source of connection, love, and purpose. Given the nature of social justice work, it's easy to feel that you haven't made a difference. But by engaging in this work within a religious community, we provide opportunities to ask, how did you feel doing that? What lessons have you learned? How have you grown? In other words, how have you been transformed by the experience? This process of reflection can remind you that your efforts are impacting yourself and your group through lessons learned. These important self-reflections build resilience and can teach gratitude and humility. On our journey to wholeness, outer work needs engagement with inner work. To those of you immersed in justice endeavors, we extend our deep gratitude to you for understanding the difficult, emotionally draining work necessary for social change. We offer ourselves as a source of connection and comfort, and we remind you to engage in the vital inner work of self-care. Both of the processes of inner reflection and wider world action can and should complement one another. They should not be regarded as two distinct ends of the same spectrum. Each is vital and reinforces the other. Both inner and outer work enrich our pursuit of meaning and purpose in life. Both can be transformative. Our individual needs for inner and outer work vary in response to life. This church is here to support both. I know there are times when a worship service or an activity may not seem compelling to you, but it may be just the message or practice that will nourish someone else. And by participating, you might be surprised by something new awakening deep within you. If the church isn't meeting the need you have, speak up, or better yet, initiate something. I will conclude with a quote from the late Bruce Lee, the actor, martial artist, and philosopher. He said, "Be like water." He used this metaphor in the context that water is formless, yet paradoxically, it can take on many forms. We are fortunate to have a church that is like water. We give it shape. The church can offer the calming tranquility of a lake that is perfectly still without ripples on its reflective surface. And the church can offer the powerful current of a rushing river whose disruptive ability carves a new course despite the hardness of the surroundings. And the best part is that the river feeds the lake, and the lake in turn feeds the river. May we go forward, knowing that as our individual needs for respite and engagement in social action shift with the unfolding of life, and that this church community is here to support our journey to wholeness, with our tears like the raindrops, peace like a river, joy like a fountain, and love like an ocean, as we join together to build a land where justice shall roll down like waters. May it be so. I'm so pleased that Heidi Schaefer-Bish volunteered to be today's worship associate. I consider Heidi to be the embodiment of someone who practices both inner spiritual work and self-care, in addition to her work beyond our church as a tireless city council member who advocates for all, including the marginalized. I've invited Heidi to briefly share her story.
Thank you very much, Christy. I really appreciate the opportunity to share a story that relates to our Chalice group topic this month, beloved community. Over 25 years ago, I had a prophetic dream. It was about a sometimes harrowing journey that ended in finding and serving a beloved community. The beloved community in my dream was beautiful, lush with green spaces and loving people. It immediately provided a sense of home and safety from the rapidly changing world that was breaking into jagged pieces as I flew over it in search of a safe harbor. I knew this beloved community would provide for my needs to grow, to belong, and to help me transform in service to something larger than myself. In my dream, I had several roles within the beloved community. First, I was recognized as a healer, an identity which, after several years as a yoga and meditation student, was starting to emerge. Then, I also became a scribe for the community. At the time of the dream, I was contemplating going to graduate school in journalism, so this wasn't a stretch either. Finally, I was made a part of the governing council within my beloved community. There wasn't a precedent for that one. My dream was prophetic in several ways. I did go on an actual journey of wandering in the wilderness of northeastern Ohio. I moved around for several years, seeking a life and a home, and eventually landing in Kent. I also journeyed within, maintaining a spiritual practice through years of difficult change. In 1996, I walked into this church and realized I was home. as part of this beloved community. I taught yoga in Fessenden Hall, our church basement. Now a trained journalist, I became the church publicist during a time of growth and change. I took on many other roles, including pastoral care, and I was ministered to in times of deep grief. Anchored by my church, I fell in love with the whole Kent community. 13 years after arriving in Kent, I was sworn into office, serving as a city council member, a position I hold to this day. So the prophecy came to be. I find myself changing again. I now see my beloved community as including and extending beyond the church and the city of Kent. Perhaps it is the whole interdependent web, a vision that is informed by our UU principles and practices of caring for one another and the earth. I believe that a sacred duty of beloved community is to touch our hearts and our minds, to help us heal, and also challenge us to action in the world when that time is right, and that's for each of us to say. It is like a dance we do in caring for our own and one another's spirits, and for our collective soul, our world. Now in time, in spite of the need for physical distancing, we are strong and thriving as a community and able to be together virtually for worship, for community, for shared ministry, because of the gifts of money, time, and care each of you so generously give. Thank you. In support of the many benefits bestowed upon our community, we will now share a slide showing how you can support the life and work of this church community, our beloved community, and beyond.
Trump tries to put us down.
Talking about my congregation.
We won't take it lying down.
Talking about my congregation.
Hank Thoreau is our hero.
Talking about my congregation.
Next to him, Calvin's a zero.
Talking about my congregation.
My congregation, my congregation, baby. Open minds, we light our chalice.
Talking about my congregation.
Open hearts, we have no malice.
Talking about my congregation.
Got no creed and no dogma.
Talking about my congregation.
We have 7 principles.
Talking about my congregation.
My congregation, my congregation.
My congregation.
Read our minds on our bumpers.
Talking about my congregation.
You won't find no Bible thumpers.
Talking about my congregation.
Long hair, short hair, butchered, balding.
Talking about my congregation.
All together we look for Walden.
Talking about my congregation.
My congregation, my congregation.
My congregation.
We don't have no Bible school.
Talking about my congregation.
Hogwarts is our teaching tool.
Talking about my congregation.
Down to earth, never snooty.
Talking about my congregation.
We get high on fair trade coffee.
Talking about my congregation.
My congregation, my congregation. Vegetarian, gluten-free.
Talking about my congregation.
Organically grown and non-dairy.
Talking about my congregation.
Muslim, Buddhist, liberal, Christian.
Talking about my congregation.
Humanist, atheist, a pagan, and a Wiccan.
Talking about my congregation.
My congregation, my congregation. Recycle and don't pollute.
Talking about my congregation.
Solar panels are on our roof.
Talking about my congregation.
Save the whales, save the lives. lion.
Talking about my congregation.
Save us from Ted Cruz's lion.
Talking about my congregation.
My congregation.
Talking about
My congregation. My congregation. My congregation, baby. My congregation.
Reverend Ladd's book refers to theologist von Ogden Voigt, who regards worship as pushing and pulling between the inner experience and the outer world, the emotional and the intellectual, even the utopian vision of the world and the actual lived experience of a world in pieces. He calls worship a dance between polarities. I say, don't sit out the dance. Go forward and boldly pursue wholeness.